Good evening and welcome to another special edition of Got Invention Radio. I am your host, Jeremy Andrews, and tonight we are interviewing Carlos Funes. He is a filmmaker, an award-winning filmmaker, and is going to share some insight about filmmaking, the process, and ultimately how to get funding for your film. Carlos, thank you for joining us tonight and welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy. I really appreciate it.
So, first to get started for our listeners, many of them are entrepreneurs, inventors, and artists in some fashion trying to get funding for their projects or films. Could you tell us a little bit more about your background as a filmmaker and how you got started in your career?
Well, I feel like I've had kind of like two or three paths running simultaneously. My main career path is director. I've directed many short films since high school, so that's some 10, 15 years. So short films, music videos, and I've been working on raising money for feature-length films in the meantime while I'm doing that. And then on the other end, I mostly earn a living doing freelance, doing video animations and special effects for music videos or commercials from everywhere, from DRTV, which is direct response advertising, to something that someone would see at a Verizon store display, animating motion graphics for some of the displays that are on there. But yeah, just a variety of things, really.
That sounds like some great experience, and you seems like you have a variety of experiences. I guess for anyone kind of wanting to start in film or becoming a filmmaker, what's the best piece of advice for maybe finding investors for your project and also going about really solidifying how you want your film to be perceived?
I guess it ultimately depends on what position your role is. If you're a producer, you would need to have one set of things. If you're a producer, you're gonna have different needs, and if you're a writer, you're gonna have different needs. And then as a director, the same. As a director, one of the first things you kind of learn out of the gate from either film school or just knowing people and working in film is that it's the screenplay that gets these projects funded. And if you have either money or a script, you can have a little bit of control and get, you can have a little bit more leeway or I guess more power or whatever the word you want to use as far as getting projects off the ground. Where if you don't have money and you don't have a script, and you ask someone to let you produce or let you direct something, it's just not really going to happen anytime soon.
Being prepared is kind of what I'm getting is the best piece of advice. Like you would in any business, be prepared to have something coming into the gate, coming into the meeting, coming in that you're offering in order for you to be taken seriously.
Well, yeah, you definitely need to be prepared. The thing is, it kind of just putting a screenplay together is like a whole art all on its own. But once you have the screenplay, then there's just like another, universe of other things that you need to do in order to just start talking to people, either producers or investors and things like that. I mean, it doesn't obviously end with the script, and even once you raise the funds, and now you need to shoot the movie, and hopefully you've been practicing with on other projects on your own or with a little bit of money. Otherwise, it's all for nothing. Quite honestly, I mean, you're constantly having to be working on things whether you've raised the money or not. Otherwise, you're going to look pretty foolish if you finally do get a green light and you haven't really been practicing at some level with either your own money or just in general or on some other people's projects or whatever.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. And I guess in terms of leading to the next question, since you've produced and directed many films over the years, do you find it's better to try and get financing from the studio route, the main big studios, or go an independent route? And I guess also the question of, do you go to investors in terms of the private investors trying to go on the road and pitch your film, or this new avenue of crowdfunding that many people are turning to for their projects? Some have had success, some not. What are your thoughts about going traditional versus new alternative methods to produce your film?
I think, to sort of simplify the questions, studio versus independent, I'm still a little bit green for the studio. They don't know a lot about my projects or what I'm working on. So I have to go the independent route ultimately and try to see if I can raise money that way. And then once you have a track record, or at least or once you're proven is what they call it, which basically means you directed one feature film and ultimately, either it's a success or not, or at least got distributed theatrically, or anyway, they look at all kinds of things. Then at that point, you could probably try to start pitching to studios. But every road is different for any filmmaker trying to make it in this business. But so I find it easier right now, independent, the indie route. Eventually, it would be nice to try to go to the majors and try to strike deals that way and see what happens. And as far as crowdfunding is concerned, I think it definitely works for a lot of people. I flirted with it at least once with mediocre success, but quite honestly, I'd rather just, at this point right now anyway, still entertain bigger investors who can bring in a lot more funding a lot quicker or easier, at least for me right now, as opposed to sending a lot of emails to a lot of people for less money. But everyone is different. It definitely works for a lot of people. I've yet to give it another crack, and I probably will at some point, but I'm not ready for it yet.
No, that's an interesting take on it, and I definitely agree. It depends on your, the situation you're in, and sometimes, as a crowdfunding company, I get asked, should you do that or should you go to the normal route? And it really is a specific situation. I think there's room for everyone, and I think that it's another crowdfunding has become another component, but not necessarily replacing the traditional means of financing fully. So that's a very definitely I agree with you on that point. Another question that I wanted to ask, in terms of, you're a speaker at the upcoming event, How to Get Funding from a Shark 2, which takes place for all the listeners on December 3rd, 2013 from 6 to 10 p.m. in New York City. How important is it for filmmakers to network and attend events like these, to meet people like yourself and other people who they may, meet people who can help with their film, or whether it's from production to creative to other parts of the filmmaking process? How important is it for someone to attend an event like this?
Well, an event like that is kind of custom made for an entrepreneur or a filmmaker or a startup or even an investor. And it's also a little bit of I feel like a rare one too. I've been to events with other filmmakers and other artists and other musicians and so on and so forth, but not one that seems to bring them together with other investors and so on and so forth. But yeah, it's very important. I think actors are generally a lot better at networking than a lot of writers and directors, but if you want to be able to, make the right contacts and get films funded, then you're going to need to, attend these events and, speak to a lot of people and hopefully meet the right people that you tend to get along with, and hopefully they'll be interested in taking one of your projects on. And I find that very useful. And it's just one way. There's to approach raising money for films, but it's not the only way.
No, I agree. That makes a lot of sense as well. Another question that came in. You are, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you came from Texas to New York, and one of the things people talk about being in the industry, either you have to go to California or you have to go to New York and the other kind of semi-metropolitan areas for filmmakers that are popping up. But New York and California have always tended to be the big mecca centers of filmmaking. Do you feel that that's still the case today? A filmmaker has to come, whether they're, like I said, a writer, a director, a producer, or an actor, has to come to a place like New York or California to get their project off the ground, or has it changed, in the recent years?
Coming from Texas, the quick answer is New York has been hugely beneficial for me. Every contact I make, I feel is bigger than the ones I would have made in Texas. And every time I speak to people about projects, the budgets are a lot larger, and the names that they want to entertain or they have contacts to or networks to are a lot bigger. Where if you're like in Iowa or Texas or some other place, the budgets are pretty much non-existent, and no one will know any kind of name that they can attach to your project or try to get a hold of. And I think people are more in the dark in those areas. You can definitely succeed, and a lot of people go to those smaller cities to try to make films, and you can definitely shoot them there. But I think ideally you'll want to be in New York or LA in order to raise the money for them. At least it's a lot easier for me. I know some people, could probably succeed in other places, but I don't think that I don't think it would be easier. I think you definitely need to be in LA or New York, at least if you want to run into people who are in business more often anyway.
That makes a lot of sense as well, and I think that's great listening advice for the people who are listening and coming to the event. I think whether it's, like I said, having a film, whether it's a short or a longer one, any kind of creative project is important to be able to connect with the right people, and sometimes you may have to go to a larger city. So I definitely appreciate that answer, and I agree with that as well. Well, Carlos, I wanted to thank you again for stopping in with God Invention Radio, and I think the insight you've given to the listeners is very helpful, and I think that the December 3rd event, get to see Carlos speak there and have some more poignant questions and insights. And Carlos, and I think you're producing a new film. I don't know if you want to tell the audience a little bit about that, your new project that you're trying to produce.
Oh, yes. I was only in New York about, 6 or 7 months, shopping around this screenplay. Actually, more than one project. One of them is, the one I'm working on right now is called South of Behar. It takes place in Texas. It's about a country music singer struggling to earn a living. And within 7 or 8 months, I got the screenplay optioned. Instead of getting funding, I got the screenplay option almost by accident. I wasn't looking to do that, but it was a good situation because they said they could attach me to direct, which is all I care about. But so the company that optioned it is called Wild Invention Pictures, and they have successfully raised money for 3 other feature films. One of them, a year or 2 ago, was called The Loneliest Planet, starring Gael Garcia, and that got distributed theatrically. And the other one is called The Lifeguard with Kristen Bell, and also got theatrical release. That one went to Sundance as well, and The Loneliest Planet went to Toronto. And so they optioned the screenplay that I wrote with a co-writer from Texas named Dan Delbo, and yeah. So right now we're partially funded, and we're trying to get the remaining amount for the project, which is at the $2.5 million budget right now.
That's amazing, and congratulations on the progress so far. And I'm sure a lot of people will want to hear about the process of how you've like you said, you've gotten partially funded so far. So an investor has given some part of the funds for the film, and coming to the event, they'll be able to, I'm sure, hear more about that. But that's all, again, congratulations, and I think that's definitely amazing in terms of the work you've been doing, and I've speaking with you about that previously. But Carlos, I want to thank you again for coming on. And if the listeners want to contact Carlos, they can do so at the event. They can also go to the website, theshark.sme.vc, for more details and information about Carlos. And thanks again, Carlos, for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate you inviting me here.